So I wanted to have a talk about a bunch of things that just illustrate the profound ideological confusion that we exist in. Now, each of these things is not directly connected, except by this through line, in that we, the British public, generally look at these things backwards. They're generally wrong. And we, in this wrong-headed interpretation of what it is to be a person, what it is to be a man or a woman, what it is to start a family, what it is to be an Englishman or woman, or a British person, what it is to just be what we are, has been completely deformed. What I think it's probably by liberal ideology, and how we are just living in this fog of confusion. I mean, this is one I covered the other day, but I really think it's worth emphasizing that there's so much confusion around what the role of men is. And as they point in this, after surveying 2,000 men and women, they're like, yeah, men have rejected old ideas about masculinity, but desperately want to care for their community and aspire to be tender and involved fathers. Well, that's what a man is. A man is a community leader in some way. The breadwinner of their household and the person of last resort. The person who, if there's a bump in the night, the wife's like, oh God, can you go and look downstairs, see what that was? Yes, I can, because I am the man. That's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. And with this comes other things. For example, being the breadwinner. It's better if I become the breadwinner, and that is something that women actually want. As they say in this, women think, generally, more women than men agreed, that things are better when men earn the money and women take care of the kids. 78% of women to 43% of men agreed with that. So nearly more than 2,000, nearly more than 3/4 of women, agree that things are generally better when men earn the money and women take care of the kids. So why is it that men don't agree with that? Only 43% of men agree with that, right? So why is it that men aren't just by default selected into being the dominant breadwinner in the person who makes the money, and the women become the people who take care of the kids? I mean, that just makes perfect sense. And like I said, women agree with this. Then why aren't we doing it? But this is not what's happening. I mean, at the moment, there are way more men than women who are unemployed in this country. Like 512,000 young men, 16 to 24, not in education, employment, or training, as in NEETs we call them. So just jobless with no prospects. And so how are they ever going to get a woman? Like, women aren't attracted to jobless layabouts who do nothing. They want men who they have means, and they are, even if they're not rich now, they're working slowly but surely, building themselves, building their wealth, building their experience, building their skills, working their way up the ladder. And so we should be providing young men a way up the ladder, because women think it's better if men can earn the money and they can take care of the kids. Like, this isn't men being selfish. This is men doing what women want them to do. So what are we doing? Why are there so few women? And it's because women are prioritized in modern society, because we're here for equality. Equality uber alles. And it's not really actually good for us to propagandize women through a feminist lens to make them think that actually they shouldn't ever get married. And yet this is what we're doing. And so, as you can see, in 1993, 3/4 of women were like, yeah, I'm going to get married in the long run. And now it's just under 2/3, whereas for boys, in fact, it was more than, so it's 4/5 of women were expecting to get married in the long run. And now it's under 2/3. And for boys, it's remained relatively consistent. 3/4 of them are like, yeah, I'll probably get married. And the thing is, again, this is actually what's good for women. I mean, look at this survey from 2022 of women based between the ages of 18 to 55, and you can see that married, unmarried in these two things, and then children, no children in these subcategories. Unmarried with no children, only 21% are very happy. 53% are pretty happy, but 24.6%, so 25%, a quarter of them, are not too happy. And with children, unmarried, again, nearly a quarter of them not happy. And very few of them, only 16.7%, so 17% of them, are very happy. So that's not great, right? That's not a great lifestyle to live, is being an unmarried woman of child-rearing age or like slightly older, with either children or no children, right? But when you go to married with no children, still a quarter of them are very happy, and 60% of them nearly are pretty happy, and only 16% of them are not too happy. So that's a marked increase on any of these other categories. But then you have married women with children, 39.5, so 40% of them are just very happy. Self-report as being, yeah, I'm very happy. Nearly half of the remainings are, 48%, are pretty happy, and only 12.9%, so 13% of them are not too happy. So half of what unmarried with no children are not very happy. But 40% of them are happy. And they tell us this here. Things are generally better when men earn the money and women take care of the kids. Like, this isn't a secret. This is a repeated thing that women generally say. Yeah, it would be better if my husband was going out and earning the money, because then, I mean, that's what I find attractive in him. He's got money, status, respect. I find that attractive. And therefore, yeah, I would like my husband to be this attractive, successful man who goes out, earns the money, comes home, pays for everything, takes care of me and the kids, so I can raise the children. And 40% of women are like, yeah, thrilled with that. This is how things should be. Say 78% of women. So, okay, well, I think maybe it might be worth catering to these rather than propagandizing young women to not get married. And that's what we're doing. I mean, this is just a random article, but there are so many of these. Why don't girls plan to get married? He's the one with his face. And it's just non-stop. Oh, there's a small percentage of women who are just miserable, and so we'll just list their complaints. Like, this old woman down here, I just wouldn't get married. All the things I could have done. Well, okay, maybe, but most women seem to be much happier with this. Like, the women who are married with children are overall just much happier than any other category. And so you can isolate a couple of them and propagandize young women who don't know any better into thinking, oh no, you better not get married, you'll be miserable. No, you won't. This is the route to happiness for most women. You're more likely to be happy. Now, I'm not saying that in every case it has to be this way. And I'm not saying we should have hard and fast rules or boundaries saying, no, women are forced to get married. Like, there's some sort of, Eastern bloody social system or something. But generally the incentive and the expectation is that women will be happier if they get married and have children. That's just the case. Women also seem to agree with this, right? 78% of women think it's generally better when men earn the money and women take care of the kids. So let's cater to this. Now, there are going to be edge cases of women who are actually very happy being unmarried with children or unmarried and no children. Sure, that's a small percentage of them. And even then, even if they're very happy, they're probably thinking that's not ideal. That probably wasn't what they're aiming for. And that's fine. We can let the edge cases take care of themselves. You do the things that make it, if for some reason you like being unmarried with no children as a woman, this is very happy, that's fine. You can do that, but don't expect that to be the kind of lifestyle that is overwhelmingly validated for women, because actually that's not the best one for women. And that's not even considering the sort of practical application of we need most women having children just so society can carry on into the future. And so, anyway, that's the gender question, right? So let's move on to the ethnicity question. Fascinating series of questions from YouGov here. 9% of white adults in England say you need to be white with English family heritage in order to be considered English. But this rises to 17 to 21% among ethnic minority adults. And this is over about 3,000 adults. So I'm not bothered about the skin colour, because that's not really the question. And it doesn't actually determine, just because you are white doesn't mean you are English. Being English will mean that you are white, unless you're, of course, of mixed race heritage, because English people are a Northwestern European ethnicity. But the point being, to be English, you need to have English family heritage. And there's another breakdown here, which is just remarkable, absolutely remarkable, right? As you can see, most white adults in England who say English identity requires English family heritage don't mean that in a racial sense. Most ethnic minority adults with the same view do think you have to be white to be English. So this is really fascinating. So somebody can only be considered English if they are white. 28% of people, white adults born in the UK, who say English identity requires a family heritage, right? So a third of people are like, yeah, you need to have English ancestry to be English. But somebody can be considered English regardless of their ethnicity. 64%. It's like, well, okay. There are a couple of things going on here. The first is, an ideological confusion of categories, right? So in a non-normative, non-judgmental way, in just a factual, intellectual way, English is an ethnicity and other ethnicities are not. And this is all predicated on Suella Braverman and her statement that I will never be truly English. Well, that's true. She is Indian, ethnically Indian, but she, born and raised here, she seems very nice. I've met her once. She was lovely. She seems to be on the patriot side of every question. So, yeah, okay. I'm more than happy to kind of accept her into the club, accept her into the tribe, as it were, right? And I've talked about this at length. This kind of, I think the English do have a sort of tribal view, because of course, you know, if you've got neighbours who are ethnic minorities and themselves are not like ethnically English, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be nice to them. You should be friendly to everyone. You should be making friends with everyone wherever you go, just 'cause it's good to be friendly to people. It makes the world a better place. And that means that you can say, right, okay, they can come into the tribe, and if, you know, they intermarry, fine. And, you know, I think that the mixed race kids have English heritage, and therefore they should be able to consider themselves English, obviously, because they have mixed race heritage. And this, like, friendship is what was the difference between Steve Laws and Liam Tufts on his podcast. Liam is thinking in this mode of friendship and tribe, whereas Steve Laws is thinking in terms of abstract category. I'm not saying either one is right or wrong, but I think this is what is happening here. And most people think in terms of tribe, but just purely on the conceptual categories, obviously you can't be English if you are not of English heritage. And the thing is, this is what the foreigners themselves think. Ethnic minority adults born in the UK who say English identity requires family heritage, 63% of them think that obviously you need to be white to be English, as in have two English parents properly to be English. And then only 27% think that anyone can be considered English regardless of their ethnicity. So they actually have a technically more correct view of what it is to be English than the English people themselves. Now, like I said, I think the English people are actually being friendly and tribal and saying, look, you can be, you know, if you're a good neighbour and we're friends, we have barbecues, whatever, you can join our tribe and I will consider you English for the purposes of looking at other tribes and saying, right, okay, well, the French tribe is not, you know, us. So you're in our tribe, so you're one of ours. But in a technical way, that isn't correct. And the only reason that this matters is because you have these sort of blind libs like Fraser Nelson who are like, well, demographic decline is a problem to which no country has yet found a solution except the UK. And it's like, no, we are still experiencing demographic decline. You can measure the number of French, Germans, Spanish and Polish and Italians all down. But the UK is up 5 million. Yeah, but we're not up 5 million Brits, right? And the foreigners that we have imported will tell you that themselves. But Fraser Nelson replying to Elon Musk here, who's like, oh, the countries have a collapsing birth rate. He looks like a man who is completely insane, completely out of touch with what is actually happening. And so he doesn't seem to understand what is actually the case. And so actually, he can't identify that there is an ethnic replacement going on, but the people we've brought in can identify it. They can see it. And so, like, Fraser Nelson seems like a lunatic to these people. And it's because he is. He's got this weird liberal ideological confusion, and he's basically going to be the last man on this ship going down with the boat. And then you get to the point of values. I would rather have 1 million immigrants who share my values than 1 million Irishmen who share my blood. Okay, well, values is a rational, top-level concept, right? It's something that you can be persuaded into, and you could potentially be persuaded out of. But the 1 million Irishmen who share your blood, what that's really talking about is a non-rational, inherited social set of conditionings that you carry with you wherever you go. And this is literally in the tiniest interactions that you have with people. So, for example, in Britain, in England in particular, we say thank you to the bus driver when we get off the bus. There's no reason to do it. There's absolutely no reason to do it. We say thank you when the cashier gives us our change, right? I've had to point out to Americans, you should say thank you to the cashier when he gives you your change, when they've come to visit. Even if you don't feel that you need to, you should do, because that's what we do in England, because it's polite and it shows them they're actually a valued member of the community. It shows them that we respect them as a part of society, and it makes sure they feel like they belong here, right? And that we appreciate what they're doing, even if it's a service we're paying for, right? So they're not just mere automatons. And that's what, when he says a million Irishmen who share my blood, what he's talking about is a million Irishmen who were born and raised in Ireland, in Irish communities, with these subconscious Irish customs and behaviors and habits, right? So he's taken the abstract rational values and said, no, that's the only thing that matters. And so if you bring in a million immigrants, even if they're all like, yeah, no, I totally agree with, liberal values. So I agree about, the British values or whatever you want to call them. That doesn't mean that you will feel as if you're at home around them. Because then, the eating the food of the fingers was a great example of this. Because this is something that is not, again, a political statement. It's not a statement of values, but what it is a statement of custom. It's a statement of familiarity and of habit. It's weird if someone just grabs a big sloppy pile of rice and shoves it into their mouth. We use cutlery for that. And that, to us, represents dignity and decorum. We think it's kind of disgusting and childlike if you're just shoving handfuls of wet sloppy food into your mouth with your hand. And they'll be like, what about burgers? Yeah, no, burgers are not wet and sloppy. They're designed to be eaten by hand. Like a slice of pizza is designed to be eaten by hand. Rice and sauce and slop, that's gross to us, right? That's a gross thing because this is just the custom in which we are raised. It is not to say that there is an objective standard of right and wrong. It is not to say this is a question of values. It is just to say that in our culture, that's not how things are done. And so you can't say, well, these people share my values. Okay, maybe they do. Maybe they share all of your abstract rational values, but they won't share your customs. And these customs are in everything that you do. The way we do everything, the character of the society will change markedly. And that will make you feel like an alien in your own land, even if politically they agree with you. And then we get onto this case here of this woman here who's like, oh, well, I don't think we should have the death penalty because everyone is capable of redemption. It's like, well, I don't really want to redeem Axel Rudikabana, right? I don't understand why we'd want to spend any amount of time or effort or energy redeeming a man who killed 3 children and stabbed 9 in total in this frenzy of premeditated anti-white hatred where he chose to murder the most vulnerable people in our society. I just don't see why we would want it. Let's assume it was possible to redeem him, which I personally obviously don't think that is. But let's assume that it is possible to redeem him. Why would we want to? What are we serving in this redemption? And the answer is this set of values. It's very, very Christian, which they wouldn't admit to. But okay, let's assume that Axel Rudikabana can be redeemed and he goes through whatever process the libtards dream up to redeem him. Is he then just an immigrant who shares your values and can just live around you for as long as... What if you have a million Axel Rudikabanas? Yeah, they've all been through jail. They've all done something horrific. They've all been through jail, but they've all been redeemed. Is Potato McWhiskey here happy to just live around them? Is he? You've got a million Axel Rudikabanas. They share your values. They've been through the brainwashing, conditioning, whatever it is you're going to do. They share your values now, and so you're just living next to a million Axel Rudikabanas. Are you comfortable with that? Is that good? I just don't think it is it, actually? I don't think it's desirable in any way, shape, or form. And I personally would just worse than hanged him. And then we come to the very nature of democracy itself. As you can see here, Rebel Labour MP Kat Eccles on Times Radio regarding the government's new asylum reforms. Quote, "It just feels like they're trying to be seen to be doing something to appease the electorate." What is democracy for, if it's not for giving the public what they want? How is the electorate the problem with democracy in the view of a Labour MP? What do they think that their jobs are, if not doing what we want them to do, the native British public? This person seems to think that their job is to help minorities, is to help asylum seekers, is to help foreigners. They seem to think their job is external to Britain. And actually, the fact that we are here is some sort of dead weight on them, some sort of anchor that's holding them back from doing what they think actually needs to be done. And to make sure that they can continue in government, which they're not going to next election, they need to appease the electorate. So I don't think you understand. You're supposed to be working for us. That was always the theory that underpinned democracy. And we are the people who decide whether you're in government or not. Like, people can complain about democracy all day, every day, but ultimately the power of selection is still in our hands. If we want to select someone who's like radical in some way or another, we can actually do that. And if we want to select against Labour MPs, like we're going to at the next election, we can do that too. And so, I mean, everyone's just like, what? What an outrage. Appeasing the electorate. The horror. Next, they'll say elections are a regrettable distraction. Yeah, they probably will. It's just mad. The MPs think that they have a job other than doing what we want them to do. That's the problem. Their view of democracy, governance, the country itself is completely backwards. They think that the electorate is blocking them from doing their actual jobs. And I'm sorry, that's just completely wrong. And this kind of attitude, this kind of fawning attitude they have towards immigrants, has put in the minds of the immigrants totally backwards views. Totally backwards. The narrative that immigrants have about the UK, and I've seen this over and over in so many TikTok videos, is just so preposterous. And also, but look at this, look how smug it is. Right, look how fucking smug it is.
Finally, Britain will be British again. Alright mate, when you're looking for a chow mein or maybe a chicken madras on a Saturday night, where are you going to go?
Or what you're going to do when you need to go and get your teeth checked and there's no dentist available.
Alright mate, when you're looking for a taxi, where are you going to find the taxi driver?
Or when you're putting your parents in an old care home, who's going to care for them?
Alright mate, when you're looking for a doctor, where are you going to go?
When you're craving your dessert on an evening at home, who's going to deliver it for you?
Alright mate, well when England can't enter the World Cup because you've only got 7 players left, what are you going to do? Alright mate, well when you're looking for a barrister, I guess you have to represent yourself or do the time.
So, geezer bro, Britain will not be Britain without all these immigrant working professionals who have made our country great.
I mean, what a fucking preposterous, smug, ill-informed position. Just to be clear, immigration into Britain started after, was it 1948 with Windrush, right? Before that, we had the greatest empire humanity had ever built. The largest empire, a quarter of the earth, was under our control. And that's not including, like, you know, the extra influence we exerted on other countries that weren't directly administered by us. Like, we literally owned their fucking country. When Britain was 99.9% English, or white, in the case of England, 99.9% white English. And so it's just kind of wild that they're like, yeah, so you wouldn't be able to do any of these things. Look, man, I was born in 1979, right? So 96.1 in 1981. So let's say it was 96.4 or something, right? It was just the case throughout all of my growing up, as you can see, from about 1979 to about 1998. Even at the end of 1998, it was 93.5% white British in this country. All of these jobs that they're saying, I remember them being done prior to the mass immigration that begins around in 1997. Something happens and Labour and the Tories are like, yeah, just open the fucking floodgates, right? I remember all of these jobs being done. Like, for example, you can't get a doctor. Doctors used to come to your house. They would come to your house in like the 1970s, 1980s. They would come to your house to check you up. Like, if there was something wrong, you'd phone the doctor, you'd be like, yeah, okay, I'll come over tomorrow morning, or I'll come over now, or whatever. Like, it used to be normal that the doctor would come to you. And now you're sat in a waiting room for like 7 hours for them to be like, yeah, it's going to be 5 months till you get an appointment because you're on a waiting list. Good luck. You know, it's crazy how much worse things have gotten with mass immigration. Yeah, look at this smug face. The smug, oh, you couldn't possibly have taxis or takeaways or this or that. So we had all of these things before you arrived. We invented these things. Pakistan didn't have all these things until we brought them there. And now you're here occupying the jobs that British people used to do, and 500,000 British men are out of work, and young British men are out of work because they can't find a job. And it's like, man, we think about all of this just completely the wrong way. If these people weren't here occupying the jobs, then young men would be able to get jobs. They would be able to get on the hierarchy. They would be able to start forming families. We would be able to start fixing the country. And yet, look at the smugness. Without us serving you, you'd have nothing. We had 99.9% ethnic homogeneity and the largest empire in human history, and we were on the winning side of the largest war that had ever been fought. Like, it's so backwards the way that everything in this country is done, and yet here we are with a bunch of smug immigrants or a bunch of radical feminists and a bunch of lunatics saying lunatic things, and all of it's wrong. Everything that we believe is just backwards, completely back to front, and it's so demonstrable that this is the case.